Hello, gorgeous queens in the hive. As I get myself all situated and hope that this works, I'm about to record a podcast for Brave Bold You podcast. So, and of course now I got the cough. So here we go. I'm going to press record and we're going to roll with it. So if you come on live, I'm going to say hello, but we'll check it out like that. Hey, Geeta. Okay, so I'm pressing record and here we go for episode 101 on Brave Bold You podcast. So I'm really excited about this. Let's roll. I just want to make sure. Testing. Yep, it is on. Here we go. Is this working? Oh, I'm excited. All right, so this is the first time that I actually try to do this. I had the invitation to just go live and record the podcast. So here's what we're doing. We're gonna roll with it. So this is episode 101 for Brave Bold You podcast, and the title of this episode is called An Invitation to Meet Your Expanded Version of You. I'm excited about this episode because last week, I'm going to say in the last several weeks, last 2 weeks, as things have started to open back up in the world, I myself have discovered that I was falling back into patterns and habits that I no longer want to prescribe to. So I'm going to back it up a little bit. When the world, pretty much right before the world shut down, and I'm going to preface this with, I am ambitious AF. Like, I am ambitious AF. There's nothing wrong with ambition. However, as I've discovered, and I'm going to talk a little bit about human design. And if you don't know what your human design is, that's cool. I'm going to show you how you can go draft your own chart. I use it as a spiritual tool. I don't use it to box myself in, but I do use it just to understand the energy that I have and that I came here in this world to cause and create. So prior to everything shutting down, like I had just done a huge event in November of 2019, serving clients. At that time, I think I was still doing in-person personal training. I was doing online personal training and nutrition. I was also stepping up more as an empowerment coach and doing like weekly live videos. For those who remember those, I used to call them food for thoughts. I think I did like a video a week for, oh my gosh, I'm going to say almost close to a year. I had this podcast, worked full time, had 3 kids, all the things, right? So what I'm saying to you right now is I was cray busy, but I am also a manifesting generator. So I understand now what that means and how to utilize that energy correctly. What happened, however, is the world shut down and I realized that I had to face myself. So here is where we're going to get into the episode. I realized that I had what had happened was when the world shut down, I actually went even more online. I opened up my YouTube channel to like open up all the fitness workout programs I had and nutrition stuff I had that clients had previously paid for. And I was like, I just want to help the world. I offered lots of breathwork sessions to just try to like put myself out there to like help others. And then I realized I myself was spiraling out. I realized that I was doing this as a distraction because I was actually in post-traumatic stress response. So what happened after that? So if you've heard this story, like I've spoken of it on many different layers, but what happened was I realized that I needed help. And as somebody who had already studied, like I have a degree in psychology and sociology, like there's no shame in me going to get help. I've done counseling. I'd worked with a theta healer coach who's actually in this group for a long time. And what happened was, I'm just like blowing kisses because I love this. It's awesome. What happened was I realized I needed help. I realized like I can't keep going like this. And I hired a coach, a high level coach. And then that's how my journey started. Hiring that coach, I discovered like the mentor that I decided to work with for a year. I worked with many of her different private clients. I also did a lot of studying. And I discovered human design. So human design found me. And this is where I realized, oh my God, I'm a manifesting generator. I'm a 5-1 profile. I have an undefined root center. So for those who don't know what human design is, no worries. It's I'm going to show you if you desire to go grab your own free chart. All you need to do is go to mybodygraph.com, draft your own chart. It's free. I'm not sponsored, by the way, but you can draft your own, draft your own chart, and you'll be able to look at it. What it's going to look like is a bunch of triangles and squares. And what I want to talk to you about is the bottom square, which is the root center. If your root center is brown, it means it is defined. If it is undefined, it would be not colored, or it would be open, completely zero color. It would be white, or you might have some activations, but the square is still white. Why that's relevant to today's episode is I have a undefined root center. Now, I'm going to pull this into a little bit of how I got to where I was. So I have an undefined root center. I also have a huge, my trauma response has always been people pleasing. My trauma response has always been overextending myself to the detriment of myself. Overgiving to the point of like, everybody gets something and I get nothing. I had done a lot of work around this, especially like for those who are close to me. They understand the dynamic I had when it came to like my close friends and then my own family, how, I had to do a lot of healing around that. So a trauma response is just something that, first of all, let's just identify what trauma is. There are two kinds of traumas. There's like lowercase t trauma, which is like, something happens to you or perceive something happens to you. It's like, it's your own interpretation of it, right? We're only viewing life through the lens of who we be, and it's not necessarily always the full truth. However, a trauma is that thing that happens immediately after the event or the perceived event. It is the energetic charge that is left in your body. So a lowercase t trauma could be something as simple as, and when I say simple, I'm going to use air quotations because I really don't want to take away from somebody else's experience. I don't want to speak to that, and I want to give you full permission to live in what it is you are, and also full permission to like grow and expand and do your own healing work, because you are not responsible for it's not your fault for what happened, but it is your responsibility to go forward and do the work that you need to. So for myself, like a lowercase t trauma could be like, I don't know, your friend breaks up with you, right? And it takes you a while to come to terms with that and accept it, right? Acceptance is always the hardest step to get through out of the 7 steps. We always go to anger, denial, like we just do all the things. And acceptance is a hard one for many humans. This is why a lot of us suffer, because we struggle with accepting the way things are. We try to go back and change, but we can't. We don't have that capacity at this time in our human experience to go back and shift things that have already happened. So that would be a lowercase t trauma. A capital T trauma would be like what's happening right now in the world, right? What we've all lived through in the last 2 years, and our nervous systems continuously get taxed. We have social media just like really going at us, the news, like all the things, and our nervous systems are not designed to just consume this information, not stop, and not have a way to output it. So a lot of us are facing burnout right now, right? A lot of us are facing burnout because the lines were blurred as people were working from home. For those who were, lucky enough to still be able to keep their jobs, they were able to work from home, and the lines were blurred as to when is my working hour and when is my family stuff and all the things, and just really overextending ourselves. And what I found to be true for myself is I went above and beyond in the sense of, I got to help the world. I got to save the world. That is a huge red flag, huge red flag. So I realized it that I was in post-traumatic stress response in March 2020. And I decided to make huge investments on my own growth, my own healing, my own leadership. And I regret none of it, none of it. Like, that was the best money and energy I could have ever spent, was to go and discover who it is I truly be and rewrite a lot of the stories. Now, fast forward to about a few weeks ago as we get into March 2022. And where I'm from, the mask mandate actually just got lifted about a week ago. People have started to go back to their employment. People are starting to come out and get together and do life, right? And here is the invitation, and here is where I'm getting into this episode. What I discovered for myself is I quickly began to fill up my schedule to the max again. It was just habit, like a pattern, right? This is the thing when we are unaware, because a lot of us, like all of us, all humans, we're living this human mess, and who we've always been is nothing more than a muscle memory of who we've always been. That's it. It's like muscle memory. It's a habit. It's a pattern. It's anchored in subconsciously, and until you're able to see it, you can't shift it. So I quickly started, like the minute we got the go ahead, like I'm still working from home. For those who don't know, I do work full time in corporate, and I got the go ahead that it was okay to start seeing some of my families that I serve. So automatically within a 2-week period, I had already booked myself to the max. I'm still running programs, right? I still have my personal one-on-one clients in my company. Brave Bold You is my company. I'm still partnered in direct sales, so that's a side business that I have with teammates, and working full time. I have my 2 boys that live at home. My older boy left, so now I'm down to 2 children. And for those who are new here, and it's going to be relevant in this episode, we recently got a puppy, and his name is Phineas. We got a puppy at the end of February. I think it was February 27th when we brought him home. So I quickly realized my schedule was maxed, beyond maxed, and I started to feel this tightness in my body. And I hadn't felt that in a long, long time. So if you do have your chart, this would be helpful, because for those who have, and when we use human design, again, it's a spiritual tool, and we use it to do the deconditioning. Deconditioning simply means you look at the conditioned response that you've always showed up in, and you get to decide energetically if this is something that is still serving you. Now, for centers that are colored in, those are defined centers. That's energy you push out into the collective. You can still be conditioned. I actually just recently met somebody who has a really powerful design. And there's no design that's better than the other. I should just say that. I always like to just say that, but she's a manifester, meaning she has really big energy, and she has been so conditioned. I honestly thought she was a reflector. So you could still be conditioned in your defined centers, but most of the time we have conditioning in our open centers or our undefined centers, meaning the center will be white. There might be some gate activations, right? If you look at these squares and triangles, there's little numbers around. So if they are lit up, colored red or black, there's definition there. So what happens is I quickly discovered my root center, and I've known this for the last 2 years. My root center is undefined, meaning my whole life, my root center, and you can't change your chart. You're born divine, and it's just a big permission slip, a liberation slip to take up all the space in the energy you have. I realized, oh my God, Crystal, you are doing this because this pressure in your body is a stress response. It's a trauma response to try to go above and beyond. And what I want to invite anybody who has their root center, so if you look at your graph, it's the bottom square. If it is brown, that means that you energetically have natural pulses to know when to work and when to tap out. It's the beautiful gift, right? And if you have it undefined like me, and I do have some activations in my gates. So I do have the gate of drive, which really explains why I am ambitious as fuck. But if it is white like this, there is going to constantly be a pressure in your body to have to do. And what I have come to discover is that I've come to discover that I don't want to be who I was previously. This past weekend, I had a really deep conversation with my sister. Actually, last week, I believe it was last week, I put out a post really just asking, anybody who knows me personally and who has grown with me, and anybody who's new to like hanging out with me or have, been in my programs, things like that, I just basically ask, like, how do you view me? Because I discovered a whole other layer to human design that I'm like really just diving even deeper into. This is like a science of differentiation, and it's been around since 1987. So people who started studying and are still learning different layers of the human design, and I just discovered something that really just made so much sense, and I will talk about it at a later date because I'm still working through my own experimentation of it. But part of that experimentation was asking others how they viewed me. Now, if that is not growth, like the crystal just from like even a year ago would have never done that, because you have to be brave enough and bold enough to really hold what people are going to give you. And I have so much respect for those who are brutally honest, because that is how we grow, right? Brutally honest. And I also understand that how somebody sees you doesn't necessarily mean that that's how everybody sees you. We see people as we are. We see the world as we are, not as it is, right? And there are so many different lenses that we can view each other through and the world through. So a lot of the feedback I got was just like a lot of validation. Not that that's what I was looking for, but it was a lot of validation that, holy shit, Crystal, you have grown so much. And just this past weekend, my sister and I got together because we're planning stuff for the company, Brave Bold You. I have big plans to actually bring her on board in my company. And she was like, you've just shifted so much. Like, it's incredible the growth you've had. Like, we really, like, I was not an easy sister, let's just say. I did a lot of mothering. So for those who've been in any of my programs, I do a lot of energy work. I consider myself an energetic empowerment mentor. And we have both energies within us, the masculine and the feminine. And I tapped a lot into my masculine, meaning I was mothering my sister a lot. I was mothering a lot of my close relationships. Mothering simply means trying to control, right? Being a mom, or if you are a mom, being a mother is feminine energy. But when you're in the disciplining, when you're in the trying to control, when you're in the structuring, that is masculine energy. It's not good or bad, right? We really got to get away from this binary stuff. But I was very unbalanced in my masculine energy. And actually, this is why I've burnt out not once, but twice, because I didn't learn my lesson the first 2 times. And as the world started opening back up just this month, and I was maxing out my calendars, I realized, oh my gosh, Crystal, if you do this, you're going to set yourself up for yet another burnout. So big realizations, if that's even a word. I put it in a sentence, it's a word. So I want to invite you, as things are opening up, I want you to ask yourself, are there things that you used to walk into? Like when I say walk into, like how you were, are there things, habits, patterns, things you used to do prior to the world flipping upside down, that now as the world is, it's a whole new world and we've all grown and shifted. Do you find yourself flowing back into a pattern or a habit that you used to be walking in? This is going to be an invitation. I'm going to ask you to really go deep and invite you into a different conversation, a conversation where you allow yourself to meet that expanded version of you. Because the truth is, we shifted. So much shifted. For myself, the biggest shifts that I had, besides, healing on like so many layers, like peel and onion layers off and off and off, and repairing the deepest relationships within myself and my close family and friends and all of it, right? I got a dog. Like this here, for some people are going to be like, big deal. I'm going to tell you why this is a big deal. The Crystal of March 2020 would have never had an animal her whole life, ever. And I could tell you why. She was so focused on output, on the doing, on the trying to be the good girl, on trying to be seen and save everybody to the extent and the detriment of her own well-being. She didn't have time for that. For those who live in my town, you know that my younger boy started his job. He started a business, and it's called Best Furry Friends. And he started this business, I think, in 2018. it took him a while to convince me as to why it would be a good idea for him to have this business, right? And I was a hard no. I was such a hard no. And my husband was like, you know, like he came up, like Loa came up to us and had all these good points of why it was so important that he start this business, right? People were going on holidays, you know, where are their animals going to go? There's no more, you know, there's no kennels. Like, let's do this to help the animals, Mom. Let's do this. I want a dog. And my answer was always, I'm too busy for a dog. I'm too busy for a dog. I wasn't even really a quote unquote dog person. So he convinced me to say, okay, you can have a few clients and we'll see how this goes. Because in my mind, I thought it would be just more work for myself. Like, let's be honest, adding somebody else to care for is extra work. And I was maxed. I was beyond maxed. And what had happened is from 2018 until 2020, he ran his business. We had several different, like, of his little regular furry friends that I became really attached to. And I started to open my heart up. So from a trauma response, like, this is healing. I started to open myself up to letting myself actually, be around animals and let myself love them and talk to them and all the things, right? And what happened is when the world shut down and everything shut down and his business was no longer busy, I started to really question, I feel like maybe this is something that I want now, which is beautiful because I didn't have space before. My undefined root center creates it so that I have constant pressure in my body to do. Plus the trauma response of trying to be the good girl and save everybody, right? It's just this narrative that I tapped into, go above and beyond and be an overachiever and, make everything seamless. I realized okay, and for those who saw, I've spoken openly about how I was actually able to manifest Phineas, and I honestly believe I did. Everybody's manifesting. We're constantly manifesting. It's just we don't know what the hell we're pulling in. We're not consciously aware of what we're pulling in. So I tapped into the vibe of, if it's meant to be, we're going to have him. So when I was having this conversation with my sister last weekend, I was like, Michelle, of course I changed. I have a dog. I created space to actually just be so that I can love and care for another creature, right? And that has been so revolution, that has just shifted so much. I had a staff meeting last Thursday and we were discussing, things that have shifted and have changed. And basically I shared that story, the Crystal of 2020 would have never had a dog. Sure, Loa could have kept his business, and he still has his business, by the way. Loa could have kept his business. We would have had dogs coming in and out of the home because I think it's amazing. But I would have never allowed myself the space to create a different type of bond, a different type of relationship because I was maxed out. So if that is not growth, I don't freaking know what is. But I want to invite you, whether or not if you have your root center defined or not, it doesn't matter. You can definitely go check it out. And if you want to book a reading, I would love to read your chart. But what I want to invite you into is to know that it's not that you have to do anything to prove your worth. And what I find so, for lack of a better word, funny is my brand message in my company has always been take up space. You were born worthy AF. Nothing has changed. You don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to do anything. But yet on a subconscious level, I was showing up in the actions a lot differently than the words that I was speaking. And here is where I realized the disconnect, and then I had to really clear it out because it's not about what you do in life. It's really not about what you do. It's about who you be. It's about how you be energetically, right? For somebody who ran 1,000 miles an hour, literally all the friggin' time, I didn't have time to have deeper conversations. Some of the feedback I got from some of my closest friends is, I feel like you actually listen now when I talk. And I do. My phone is down. That's been the biggest shift because I realized that when I was having conversations with friends, I'd be on my phone. I'd be responding to emails. I'd be responding to texts. I'd be booking in clients. I'd be responding to like quizzes for my beauty quizzes for my business, my side hustle. I'd be booking in like, you know, sessions for private one-on-one clients. I was never physically like or emotionally and spiritually connected. My body was there physically, but I was probably at a 60% capacity of holding space for another human. And if that's not brave to share that right now on a video and on an audio that I'm going to put all over the internet, I don't know what is. So here's an invitation that I would love for you to just sit in as I get ready to close off this episode. Is an invitation to go do the opposite of what you were used to do in 2020 and prior to 2020. An invitation to do the opposite. What the world flipping upside down allowed a lot of us to do if we tapped into it was to stop and to pause. And in that pause, it was probably very uncomfortable, as it was in my body, super uncomfortable. And I realized that was a trauma response because my nervous system was so used to chaotic mess and the going, it thrived on that. But I realized it didn't thrive. That was survival. That was just an extra cortisol pumping through my body, making me feel like I was alive when really I was maxing myself out on all levels. So here is an invitation for you to actually reflect on as things start opening up, as you start, you know, going on with whatever the world is going to now look like, a big permission to do the opposite of what you've always done. A big permission to actually question yourself and hold yourself in a space of, I love using this compassionate curiosity, because who you've been, there's nothing wrong with that version of you. There's nothing wrong with her. All her beautiful coping mechanisms were there to provide a way to keep you safe while you navigated the human mess. But going forward, you can consciously choose, is this pattern, is this habit, is this serving my highest queen self? And if it is beautiful, continue and know that you can always pivot and shift. And if it's not, a permission to just put it down. So that's what I wanted to do, is just come back and really just share. That was a huge revelation to me, because yes, I am ambitious AF, and I understand that based on my human design, like my motivation in life is leadership. I'm here by desire through the trajectory of leader. So for those who do understand the deeper levels of human design, and I'm a left angle cross. So I'm here to impact on a societal level. That drive, that burn, that's just in my womb and like pulling at me constantly, vibrating my cells to like do something. It's because energetically I'm meant to. But I want to channel that energy in such a more concise manner where I can serve at a higher capacity, but I start with myself. And so that's what I'm going to end on. Permission to, or an invitation even, to meet that highest version of you. Meet that version of you, and allow that version of you to trigger you. Because she will trigger you, and allow that version of you to soften into the next steps. Because isn't that what this life is about? I mean, it's a softening. We can harden and calcify and, just shut down, or we can soften and allow the lessons to come in and have conversations with us without making any of it right or wrong. So that's what I have. Thank you for being here. This was so fun to do it live and also record on my audio. If anything was a breakthrough for you, or you wanted to further expand this conversation, I would love to hear. So for those who are not in the Hive, please come hang out with us. It's like the best international women's empowerment group on the planet, literally. I love this community. Come hang out with us and let's continue this conversation. And for those who are in the Hive and they want to share any revelations, I would love to hear that. I think that it's really profound and we can all grow. This is the thing. We're not doing life alone. alone. We're doing it. We're co-creating it together. And just hearing somebody else's story really just neutralizes and sometimes makes you feel like you're not alone and there's nothing wrong with you. And that is just one thing that I've always tapped into, is this vulnerability to just lay it out flat, like lay it out straight, put it on the table. Like, perfection doesn't live here. And I believe in you. So expand into this extra version of you and continue to expand and love that other version of you that brought you to this step, because she's beautiful. There's nothing wrong with her. So that's what I have. That's amazing. The last thing that I'll say is I just created a tip jar. So you'll see in the show notes, there is a tip jar option. If ever you wanted to energetically express kindness, you can most definitely do that. Again, tips are not necessary, but they're very appreciated. It just, energetically lets me know that that you appreciate me. And if you don't leave a tip, I love it. Leave me a comment. Tell me that something sparked within you. Come hang out with us, and I would just love that. So we'll talk soon. Bye. That was it. Thank you for being here, ladies. So I'm going to just go back and make sure that the audio worked good. But if it did, this is how it's going to be. This is going to be my accountability to show up and just pour into Brave Bold You podcast, pour into this community. I love your faces, and we'll talk soon. Bye.